Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. It's the Ukraine War news update, second part thereof for the 13th of August 2024. Actually, technically, usually would be my first part because it is my hits and losses video. It is one that I've just recorded and there was no audio. I've had a full day out, a lot of walking and snorkeling. I'm absolutely exhausted. But I thought I have to get this out because otherwise it all feels a bit wrong. Yeah, goodness me, what a day of exhausting, brilliant day. But my goodness, my MS riddled body really struggled. By the end of it, I actually I actually made it 50 meters away from the coach to get back on a coach, and I fell down. I had to be helped up by some guides who put me back on a coach. So yeah, the body took a battering, but it's all right now. Nothing like a bit of R&R. So anyway, onwards and upwards. This is the Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All usual caveats apply. And you can find those caveats in the description to the video below. Okay, so we have 1,160 personnel lost, which is pretty much where we have seen it. There's talk about whether the stats include the Kursk offensive, and I don't know why they wouldn't. I know there's OPSEC there, but it seems bizarre not to include them. But anyway, some people saying they might not be including that. There's also talk. I said POWs should be included in these personnel stats, and some were saying. One person said, why would POWs be in casualty list? Well, actually, the military term casualty includes prisoners of war and deserters, killed and wounded. Often casualty in common parlance is conflated with just dead, but actually includes, in military terms, includes POWs as well. So this number should include POWs. I would have thought it was the general staff eventually came out and admitted that it did include wounded. Initially, a lot of people saying that it's only dead, this number, and actually the general staff put that rumor or put that idea to bed. So yeah, 1,160 is where it's been for some time. With slight variation around that. 5 tanks is fairly low again. 17 armored personnel vehicles is on the daily average, really. 36 artillery systems is lower than we've seen it, but still twice the daily average, but certainly at the lower end of the recent range. 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, pretty useful. 59 vehicles for fuel tanks and 5 pieces of special equipment. I mean, I think that the Ukrainians are going to be losing more vehicles at the moment because they are attacking in Kursk, and we'll come on and talk about some of those stats soon. It also means that it depends whether the Russians are pushing as hard as they previously were right across the rest of the front line, and it may be that they aren't attacking. I mean, they still are attacking, but not to the same degree as maybe they were, say, 2 months ago. But yeah, that's just my personal speculation. So when we look at Andrew Perpetua's lost stats and remember, this is almost out of date already. Well, it is out of date. This is almost 24 hours ago these stats came out. So sorry that it's late, and sorry I'm reporting on kind of yesterday's activity much more than I usually would do. Nonetheless, I think it would be wrong not to go through these stats because I love going through these stats. Anyway, you have the Ukrainians losing more than Russians there, and that's what you would expect. You could get all doom and gloom about this, but the Ukrainians are attacking in Kursk to a degree that they haven't attacked since May of last year and onwards. That summer counter-offensive where they started losing a lot of equipment because that's what happens when you attack. Now, the question is, are they going to lose the ratio of equipment that the Russians have lost when the Russians attack? Or are they going to do things better? Are they going to be a bit more savvy about how they do this? I don't know. We shall see. But for the for the Ukrainian losses, some surveillance and comms equipment, another radar loss, an ANTPQ-50. That's going to be annoying. Lancets, although it could be a decoy, says Andrew Perpetua, Lancets are still doing a lot of damage to the Ukrainian equipment. Then when we come down, we see an M1 Abrams abandoned. I don't know how many Abrams they've got left, really. They started with 31. There were the rumors that they were going to get that doubled. Don't know that actually happened. But yeah, another one lost there. So Yeah, infantry fighting vehicles, and this is your example of, or this is your reflection of the Ukrainians attacking. So you've got two captured vehicles there, BTR-4E. That's the one that was actually originally thought to have just been captured off the Ukrainians directly, but then there were further reports that it was abandoned in a wood and the Russians picked it up. But a BMP-1, and they come down here in a Cougar H as well, MRAP. So we have some captured vehicles. We've got quite a few destroyed infantry fighting vehicles. Most of them are BTR-4Es. That seems to be the vehicle of choice up in the Kursk region. We've got a Marder destroyed, a German-provided infantry fighting vehicle, and a few other bits and pieces of Bradley damaged as well. And when we come down to the APCs, there's quite a heavy list of captured, abandoned, and destroyed compared to damage. So that's not good for the Ukrainians there. We come down to APCs, most of those damaged, which is good news. We've got a couple of Humvees, Striker, M113, Senator, most damaged, one Humvee destroyed. And we've got some MRAPs, one captured, and a couple destroyed there. And then the rest civilian vehicles and whatnot. So the Russian losses include an air defense system, an older 9K33M3 OSA. You've got some surveillance and comms equipment, piece of artillery, a couple of tanks, a few infantry fighting vehicles, and then NTLB, APC. But basically, most of the equipment is trucks and ATVs and civilian vehicles. That gives you that parity. But if you're just talking about combat losses, I think the Ukrainians have lost maybe 4-to-1 ratio of Ukrainian vehicles lost to Russian vehicles. So yeah, that's not good news. Certainly a bit of a switcheroo from what we've seen recently. The question is are they still are they doing a better job of attacking the Russians essentially? Now when we go on to other nuggets of personnel losses, 225th battalion from Ukraine says it decimated one of Kadyrov's Akhmat units. As evidence, they posted ID documents from the defeated Chechens, including two commanders. There's some other bits of information regarding the Akhmat. So these are the Chechen special forces. Well, there's the Akhmat battalion, which is your general I think fighters, but there's also the Akhmat special forces. Although most of the fighters that I do believe are actually Russian and not Chechen these days. Nonetheless, they have been getting into a bit of spot of bother up in Kursk Oblast. Here you've got this battalion being decimated, according to some Ukrainian sources. But sorry, slight voice problem there. Too much talking, not enough drinking. So there are some other claims that Alexei Loudonov, the Akhmat leader, said originally, I think maybe in the last 24 hours or so, that he denied that the Akhmat had been some Akhmat had been captured. I don't know whether this is. I mean, the idea from Tim White here is that these people have been killed, but he denied that any had been captured, and then has come out since then and said actually some have been captured, but they're not from the Akhmat special forces. They're from the battalion. So I don't know if that's part of this sort of claim here, but yeah, they are coming into a spot of bother in the Kursk region, although they supposedly captured that BTR-4E yesterday. So yeah, 6.5 dozen the other. 3 dozen Russians surrender in this video of Bratchuk, says PS01. We are seeing so many videos of Russians being captured, Russian POWs. Indeed, no reports to another video says unbelievable how much footage is being released of Russian captives. And I personally could show you a whole host more just from today. But yeah, there you go. And then this was worth pointing out. It's another HIMARS, or probably HIMARS, Gimler's Guided Multiple Launch Rocket System strike. This is one where they've taken out a high-value P-18 radar system. But as Fabian Hoffman says, not pinpoint accuracy we're used to with the Gimler's video. Most likely the GPS receiver was jammed, forcing the missile to rely on its inertial measurement unit for guidance. Fortunately, the M30A1 or A2's fragmentation warhead can compensate for the increased CEPs. So let's explain that. So this missile will have two guidance methods, and one is a GPS. It's the primary one. But if it gets jammed by electronic warfare, then it can rely on its inertial guidance, but that is not as accurate. And as you can see from this imagery, the missile strikes close, but not quite well, close and close enough, but it's compensating for that lack of accuracy with the fragmentation warhead that explodes lots of tungsten fragments all over um, the target, so it doesn't have to hit right on the noggin. And now the CEP circle error probable is that 50% of the time it has to hit. So say it's a, I don't know, CEP of 5 meters, then 50% of the time it's going to hit within 5 meters of the target. The other 50% of the time can go anywhere, but that will allow it to be designated a precision guided munition. But of course, if this is now 30 meters away from the target, then that's not as good, is it? But luckily, being a cluster, or not cluster munition, it being a fragmentation warhead, it will still be able to do damage to the targets, as you can see by this video's graphics there. So anyway, that's a high value target taken out there. Apparently, Ukrainian jets have joined the invasion of Russia's Kursk Oblast, says David Axe in Forbes, and blown up a Russian command post. I have seen a video of that. There is this building that is basically completely taken apart, and that is supposedly a Russian command post in Kursk. That would be incredibly high value. I think maybe some were even saying it's the Akhmat command post, which might then go back to this idea that they've been sort of decimated. But anyway, I'm not 100% sure. Right, onto the equipment ratio in this area. So this is another Nalcio analysis. Often has, well, actually, their analysis in Pokrovsk or in the Avdiivka sector has shown that the Russians have lost 5 times as many pieces of equipment as the Ukrainians. Now, here we have the Ukrainians attacking into Kursk, and they've lost 29 bits of kit, and the Russians 22. So you'd expect the attacking side to lose more. So that's okay, par for the course. But they're doing a far better job of attacking, by the looks of it, than the Russians had. But the difference being, the Ukrainians were able to go into fairly open land and just seize that area, take some losses, but they're not coming across huge numbers of minefields and dense Russian fortifications and drones and all sorts. And so, while these stats look pretty good for the attacking side, even though the attacking side's lost more, it's not that many more that they've lost, 29 to 22. It probably is a reflection that this is Kursk and not Pokrovsk. Then just a bit of evidence that the Russians still are attacking. This is in Lipsy area, which is in one of the Kharkiv sectors, and we've got these turtle tanks that are just box vehicles. There's 3 of them in a row that come down here, and they get absolutely hammered by artillery by the looks of it. So yeah, good to see that the Ukrainian artillery is still on point, and interesting that the Russians are still using turtle tanks and are still attacking in many of these places. But I don't know how much the Russians are attacking across the front line. I know Turretsk and New York is all still very bad for the Ukrainians. I just haven't kept abreast of the front line as much as I would like, but I don't know whether there are claims. So the Ukrainians are making claims that the Russians are pulling troops from the front lines on the eastern front line and in Kharkiv and pulling them to Kursk, but also claims that it hasn't affected Turretsk, which is one of the places they really like to affect because that's one of the worst places for the Ukrainians at the moment. Anyway, going on to distance strikes, and bear in mind that right now there are strikes taking place that I've got some information on that is, showing that these are a good day out of date, but nonetheless, in the previous night's attacks, Tim White says 38 drones were sent into Ukraine and 2 Iskander-M missiles, ballistic missiles. They hit Sumy and Chernihiv regions. 38 drones were sent in, 30 were shot down. So it's a fairly good interception rate, but 8 still got through, and a couple of ballistic missiles. I don't really know too much of the detail other than from what Tim White has said here. In Chernihiv, drones hit civilian infrastructure. Also believed a missile landed in the region. There are no casualties. Not much of an update there. So, yeah, don't know of how much damage was done. There's this claim from Russia that it hit a military cargo, some military cargo stored in Odessa region, presumably from that night, but that's not been specified. The Russians claim that weapons and ammo were being kept in a warehouse after arriving from Romania. However, there's no news, of an explosion, even from Odessa's pro-Russian channel. On the other hand, 14 drones were downed in Russia that night, and 12 in that being 12 in Kursk. You'd expect that given the shaping that the Ukrainians would want to be doing. One in Belgorod, one in Voronezh. Um, but yeah, so not too much detail coming out about either of those sort of sets of strikes. Now, right now, the Ukrainians are attacking with their drones into particularly Russian city of Voronezh. Multiple explosions, at least one fire reported near the Baltimore airbase. Locals had reported, I believe, that 10 explosions have been heard there. It's home to a number of Russian strike aircraft. Low-flying drones are recorded here on that video. Fire reportedly in the vicinity of Baltimore airbase, recorded from like 3.25 miles away from the airbase. So it looks to be that that airbase infrastructure has been struck. War Translated says explosions continue into the night in Voronezh region and other regions of Russia as air defense has been working for hours. Military airfields and other sensitive facilities might be targeted. And also Boryspil in Russia is getting some attention, as is Kursk. Again, Kurchatov in Kursk, explosions being heard there. And PS01 says powerful explosions in Zheleznogorsk, Kursk. If it's due to Ukrainian drones, then the likely target is the iron ore plant Mikhailovsky GOK, which was already attacked on March the 6th of this year. So there's quite a bit of activity taking place at the moment inside Russia. Moving on to other bits and pieces, we're going to start with Russian propagandists are preparing their audience for another major Ukrainian offensive, they say, which they believe will take place at the end of August or beginning of September. They speculate this might involve cutting off the land corridor to Crimea and a massive F-16 strike on the Crimean bridge. It might have stuff to do with Kinburn Spit. It might be worth bringing that in now, actually. So the Kinburn Spit is a source of worries for the Russians, says this Russian source, may be a key area in the coming weeks. And that may well be true because the Ukrainians have attacked there in recent days. Due to sonorous outbursts from over there, I am going to have to bring this to a premature close. So I will give you the rest of these other bits and pieces from this section of the video in my next hits and losses video that will be hot on the tails of this one actually tomorrow morning. So yeah, you can look out for that. Anyway, apologies for cutting this one short, and I'll probably be unable to do my Kursk video update tonight as well due to the same audio issues that I might have. Anyway, take care, guys. Speak soon. Toodle pips.